joining me today, but if you're viewing from home, then I'm just going to give you a breakdown for this tutorial. I'm going to go through the second assignment, which is due on the 18th of September, and then go through a little bit of how to set up your essays, because I think some of you guys are new, so you might be battling a bit with structure. And then I'm going to go through some revision questions that may come up in the exam and just work through some of the questions and answers with you. So even at home, you can just go through these questions because they're very important. Okay, so assignment 2, the journal article review. The journal article review, you can choose any article on an abnormal psychological disorder. So a few that you could use would be the popular ones are like the eating disorders, which is bulimia and anorexia. Also obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, agoraphobia, and then the ones that was mentioned here, ADHD and depression. So you can choose any one of those, and then you will need to read the article, then summarize what the article entails. So when it says summarize, that's just basically stating the main points, the main arguments that are brought up in the article. Thereafter, critically engage. Critically engage means you will state your thoughts on the article. Do you agree with what the author is saying or disagree? And why do you say that? Why do you agree or why do you disagree? You need to back up what you're saying. And this is actually going to be your own opinion. We always say don't give your own opinion in research papers, but this is a review, so you will provide your own opinion in that section, specific section. Okay, you must attach the actual article to the assignment. Okay, don't forget that. That's very important so that the lecturer, your lecturer can go back and forth to see whether what you're saying is actually taken from the article. The length, 1,000 words. Your value of that is 20%. It counts overall. What else? Now, there's no one online, so I can ask if there are any questions. But if there are any questions, then just take down my email address, which will come up now on the PowerPoint. Next up, we're going to go through the essay structure. So just follow on the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so here is my email address. This is any questions regarding the assignment. If you want to send me, if you feel you're really struggling and you may be a new student in the semester, then you can email me with any questions. Even if you're not new, email me with drafts, questions. Just only email me a draft if you're really down and out and struggling. Okay, so I've been through this before, but it's really important because I see some of you are still making these mistakes. Your essay structure, you can choose between Times New Roman 12 or Arial 11. And this is the font. It can only ever be these two fonts and font sizes. This is just basically to help you because whichever university you go to, there's going to be a standard and if you don't follow that, marks will be deducted. Must include 1.5 line spacing. In order to get that, you will basically right-click and click paragraph, and then there will be an option to choose the various line spacing. Include page numbers on the top right-hand corner, starting after your contents page. So you must make sure that you number your pages, but you number them starting after the contents page. Okay, another recap. We've been through this before. If you want to reference your lecturer's notes or slides, this is how you do it. This is the in-text. In-text meaning in between the paragraphs or at the end of the paragraph. This would be, for instance, the surname, which yours would be Adonis, the year, and which slide it was. And then this bottom section here would be how you reference on your reference list. So the surname, initial, year, and remember, don't put the year in brackets. I see many of you are putting the year in brackets because that might be a different referencing style, but we're using the Harvard style, so you need to follow by that format. And then lecture 3, the name of the subject of what you're doing, and then PowerPoint presentation, the place, and the institution. Okay, so it is compulsory to include an in-text reference and reference list in your essay. A lot of marks are deducted for this because at university level, plagiarism is taken quite seriously. Plagiarism can also result in you being let off at the university as well. Okay, so here's an example of reference list. You've got the surname, initial, and year, the title, and then this over here in italics would be your journal article. And then you've got your the volume, and over there you've got the page numbers, and then this over here, this link would be the web address that you get from the top, and you just paste it in there, and then the date accessed would go here at the bottom. At the bottom here is another example of a book reference at the end. Okay, example on how to in-text reference in a paragraph. So there have been many questions around how many times do you in-text reference, and do you only put it at the end, or do you put it in between as well? So here's an example of one of my essays where this section over here was taken from one author, and then I in-text referenced it over here. But then this section over here was taken from another author, so I in-text referenced it again with a different author. So if your whole paragraph is just one author, then you can put one in-text reference at the end just with that author. So Cohen, if Cohen said all of these things, then you can just have one in-text reference at the end. But if you're using multiple authors, you would need to show where is what that author said. So Tudenham said this, so I need to in-text reference. Cohen said this, so I need to in-text reference. Okay, so here's an example of how to locate this journal article. So when you go onto Funda, you will see you will go into your tab. Then on the side you click EBSCO, and then over here in this section you will type in whichever psychological disorder you want to use. Like for example, eating disorders. If you want to type in bulimia or anorexia, you will type in this section, and you will see a whole lot of articles come up. You save that one article, and then that can be if you decide to use that article, then you will just be referencing from this one article. This is just the only article you're using. See, we've got one viewer. Are there any questions thus far? Okay, so I'm going to move on. I would have liked to have a discussion on this, but there's no one at the moment that is actually live with us. So define psychology and what are the goals of psychology. This is very important when it comes to exam questions. You need to make sure that you understand this. So just at home, if you're viewing this later on after work or wherever, just write down these questions so that you have some sort of revision and know kind of what to expect in the exam and how the questions will be asked. Very important, what is a neuron? And name its parts. So I was hoping that I could actually get some response, but this is the structure of the neuron, and you need to make sure that you know the different labels. So here we've got the neuron with all its labels. You've got your cell body, the nucleus over there, the axon, very important to remember the axon and the axon terminal buttons. The dendrites are these which look almost like branches of a tree. Those are your dendrites. Also known as your receivers. The axon terminal buttons are the transmitters. Just make sure you go through that. I can't go through it all right now, but make sure that you just brush up on that if it's not so clear in your memory. Okay, label the 4 lobes of the brain. So we've got this section in front, we've got the middle and the bottom and the side. Okay, so your frontal lobe, this is the frontal lobe section, which is related to your thinking and planning. Parietal lobe, perception. Occipital lobe, vision. I always think to remember this one like your optician, like the O from optician, to allow you to make it easier to think, okay, that comes from the eye. Temporal lobe is related to memory and language. Okay, the switchboard of the brain is known as and defines sensation and perception. So remember in my previous tutorials I was talking about the receptors in the eye and in the ear. So in the eye it was the retina, and in the ear it was the cochlea. The cochlea which will the eye which will basically receive the light, and then the cochlea which will also take in the sound. So the question to the answer to the previous question is the thalamus, the brain's main switchboard, which is the thalamus. And on this picture you will see where it is located, over there. The thalamus, the brain's sensory switchboard, located on the top of the brainstem. It directs messages to the sensory receiving areas in the cortex and transmits replies to the cerebellum and medulla. Another important term, hypothalamus, which we see is located under the thalamus. A neural structure lying below the thalamus directs eating, drinking, body temperature, helps govern the endocrine system via the pituitary gland, and is linked to emotion. So just make sure you know these labels, these ones in particular. Okay, so the central nervous system is made up of the brain and spinal cord and optic nerves. So the brain and spinal cord is basically where all these signals get transported through. Everything goes from the brain down the spinal cord, from your receptors through the spinal cord to the brain. The central nervous system controls thought processes, guides movement, and registers sensations through the body. What is signal detection theory? What is transduction? Define dark adaptation. What are the 2 types of visual depth cues? So write those questions down and then make sure that you go through them. I won't go through all the answers, I'll just do some of them. Signal detection theory, bias to favor a particular type of response. For example, when a person is quite uncertain as to whether the stimulus was present, the individual will decide based on what kind of mistake in judgment is worse. To say that no stimulus was present when there actually was one, or to say that there was a stimulus when in reality there was none. The signal detection theory is described in terms of hit and false alarm rates. By this we mean that if a signal is present and a person correctly identifies the signal, then she has made a hit. However, if the signal is absent and she says that the signal is present, then she has made what is called a false alarm. Dark adaptation. You must have noticed this phenomenon. When you are outside on a sunny day and then walk into a darkened room, at first you can hardly see anything. For example, if people come into a darkened movie theater, they are constantly tripping and stumbling over their seats on the way in. However, after being in the theater for a while, you adjust to the lower light level of the theater and it becomes very easy to see your way around. This phenomenon is called adaptation. Adjusting from the light to dark is called dark adaptation. So the picture below basically just shows how the pupils change in order to adjust to the different lighting. Okay, so your lecture has given me 2 parts of revision. This is the second test. Define consciousness. We've been talking about that in previous tutorials and the different types of consciousness. Name 2 types of sleep disorders, another one that you guys should know already. What is wish fulfillment in dreaming? Name 5 types of drugs which lead to altered states. So sleep disorders which we've previously discussed: insomnia, sleep apnea, narcolepsy, restless leg syndrome. I'm not going to go through those because you guys can check previous tutorials to catch up on those. Wish fulfillment, the satisfaction of a desire, need, or impulse through a dream. So basically, you're fulfilling this wish in your dream, something that you really desire in your everyday life, but it really isn't attainable. Your dream will sometimes play that out to give you this desire. I'll give an example. So perhaps there's a girl or a guy that you fancy, but you know that you'll never be able to get them. In the dream, you might dream of where you're actually in a relationship, where you're actually together, which in actual reality will never happen. What is hypnosis? Name 2 applications of hypnosis. So that's very important to go through. Define the following terms relating to attention: selective attention, automaticity, divided attention, and focused attention. Okay, so divided attention, difficult to attend to more than one thing. Sorry about that spelling error. To more than one thing at the same time, trying to attend to 2 stimuli at once and making multiple responses rather than making one response to multiple stimuli. Selective attention, difficult to attend to more than one thing at the same time, trying to attend to one task over another requires selective attention. Automaticity, which is automatic processing, does not require attention. For example, when driving a car and listening to the radio at the same time. Define these 2 concepts in learning: habituation and sensitization. I'm not going to go through those. You guys must just follow in your textbooks and just brush up on those. What is the difference between classical conditioning and operant conditioning? And define the following: memory code and chunking. So these are different ways of taking in information into your short-term or long-term memory. Memory code, the format of information encoded into memory. So the physical, phonemic, and semantic are the different ways that your brain tries and remembers the information. Example, a memory code that emphasizes the physical structure of the stimulus. We may emphasize the shape of a dog's nose to identify the breed. Example, a German Shepherd has a longer, more pointed nose than a Bulldog. And subsequently, make a code for German Shepherd according to the dog's nose. So there's a picture at the bottom, so you might always remember it that way. Chunking. Chunking involves taking long strings of, okay, I blocked that out there, long strings of information like numbers or letters and grouping, and converting them into smaller, more manageable bits of information. This can be an example when you are, for instance, you need to get an alarm code. You're driving and someone sends you an alarm code that you need to punch in, and you only have a short amount of time before you get to your house and you're driving towards there, and you've got about 10 numbers you need to punch in. So your brain will automatically group those numbers into, instead of saying it for instance 18765, saying all those numbers, your brain will chunk them. So you will make little groupings. So you'll take 187, 382, and so on. You will chunk them to make it easier for your brain to remember it. But this is just on a short-term memory strategy. This is just for something you need to remember quickly, and that's how your brain sometimes remembers it. Okay, what are the two types of processing within coding? What is the difference between implicit and explicit memory? And name two types of memory loss. So all these, this is my last slide now, but all these questions that I've gone through now, you need to just make sure that you go through them and know them well. And now this also just helps you for your upcoming exam on how the questions will be phrased. Okay, so I hope you guys have been able to take some of what I've said and apply it into your essays. Once again, if there's any questions, feel free to email me. My email address was now on the presentation on the front page. Or if you don't have my email address, you can also get it from Natalie. If there are any other questions, I don't see anyone online, so I wouldn't really be able to answer now any questions. Let's see if there's anything else. Okay, so I will be seeing you guys in 2 weeks' time again. Thanks, guys.